Alright, just like you want your web page to be flexible and fit different screens, different sizes, you also need your CSS or your cascading style sheets to be flexible as possible. And luckily, CSS does just that because it enables the separation of the content from the design, and the CSS styles can be internal or external. So this is great. You can have that separation be, say, all at the top of the HTML page, still internal to that HTML page, or it can actually be a separate page entirely and they're just linked together. So this is obviously great because you can have multiple pages that use that one style sheet, and that CSS will affect all of those pages. Makes it easy to update. Everything will be consistent. The file size will be smaller since you're just referring to that one file. So let's take a look at that, how we do that, even moving some CSS from one web page out of it to a separate CSS file. So we're going to be back in Dreamweaver, and we want CSS and, quite frankly, all of our code to be as flexible as possible. So currently, if we take a look at our CSS over here, well, we're wondering, if we right click on this, we can go to the code, we can see the CSS right in here. Well, where is it? It's actually, again, remember we talked about that before, it's inside of the HTML page. It's all embedded. So if I happen to need to make multiple pages, they're all going to have those same CSS styles in each and every HTML page. So what I really need to do is take all the CSS and put it in an external style sheet, and that happens to be what's going on here. Is there's an external style sheet from what I used, a web font. So that's what this is right here. The style sheet.css is this style sheet. So what I can do is I can take all of these CSS styles, just shift select them, do a right click, and I can move the CSS rules. When I do that, note that it's automatically selecting that CSS style sheet right here. And note, if you didn't import any sort of web font, you can create a new style sheet from scratch. But in this case, since I already have one, I'll just point to it and select OK. Okay, what just happened? Well, it indented everything. It says, hey, I'm a part of this CSS now, so I can open that up. In fact, if I take a look at my code, I can see it's all moved. It's no longer in my HTML. Okay, and check this out. As I go into code view, I can see that all of my code nice and neat, just like that. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to save this document, and that's one thing you have to be aware of if you're going to want to start saving all your related files. Because as you make changes in here, you want to make sure that it's reflected in the source code. Alright, well, so one thing I've noticed in here is, well, not really crazy about where the style sheet exists. It's within this font folder. That's where the style sheet.css is. And a good practice is to have it in a separate CSS folder. So if I take a look at this specific folder, I can go ahead and move it. In fact, rename that folder. So here we go. Let's do that. In my font folder, I'm going to rename that folder to CSS, just like that. It doesn't bother me that there are some web fonts in here. It's perfectly fine. I just want to be really clear that these are my CSS files. Alright, and will all exist in this CSS folder. We've changed it. What's going to happen if I go back to Dreamweaver and go to Design View, if I take a look at it, turn off this live view, even turn it back on, you can see that I don't see it initially, and that's because I need to change this to CSS just like that. Alright, there we have it. I'm going to save all, or I can just save related files, but I'm saving everything. My style sheet is now in a CSS folder. If I go to Design View, everything looks good in Design View. Everything looks good in Live View. And another thing I want to point out is I take a peek at this CSS is that Dreamweaver was aware of the fact that there were images that were linked. So When I moved all these styles into the style sheet, it knew to change the path to that JPEG. So it actually has to go out a folder and then back into that images folder. Let me show you what that looks like. It will go out a folder, so that's what these two dots are. Go out a folder and then go into that images folder to find that background home. Okay? So that's how that works. I like how Dreamweaver is intelligent and knowing where items are. We can see that everything looks seamless and works seamless, and now what I can do is I can reuse this CSS across multiple pages.